the last video, we talked about the rhetorical triangle. Now we need to consider the modes of persuasion. So, really, how we're going to do this is through the three rhetorical appeals. We have ethos, pathos, and logos. Aristotle says these are the three main avenues by which people are persuaded. So, we're going to look at each of these closely. First, we have ethos, and this is going to establish the speaker's credibility or authority. This is really anything that the speaker does to present oneself in a positive light. So anything that you see in a commercial or that you're reading that makes the speaker seem like a good person who's on your side, that's how they are using ethos to manipulate you. Additionally, ethos is how we're going to demonstrate a speaker's honesty, trustworthiness, and expertise. A moment ago, I used the word manipulate, and I said, when you're watching something or hearing a speech, you're being manipulated. It's important to note that you're not always being manipulated, but lots of times when you're, for example, watching an advertisement, you are, the goal there is to persuade you, to manipulate you, to want to use a specific product. So we need to consider the element of manipulation when we are talking about the modes of persuasion. Next, we have pathos. Some people say it pathos. Either way is fine. This is going to appeal to the audience's emotion. That could be anger, joy, sympathy, anything like that, that the speech or the essay or the commercial is trying to make you feel. So when you looked at the Kevin Hart commercial for your previous assignment, you might have found it funny. And that's one of the emotions that the creators of that commercial wanted the audience to feel. If you were a dad, you may be feeling a need to protect your daughter, if you're a dad of a daughter, right? If you're a mom of a son, you might be feeling a little bit defensive because the young man in that video was kind of portrayed as a little bit of a praying male, right? So we want to consider how whatever it is that we're encountering, whatever this rhetorical situation is, how it's playing on our emotions to manipulate us. Lots of times people are swayed by their emotions, unrightfully so. So when we run into things like logical fallacies, it's because they're typically playing on our emotions. So we want to avoid having arguments that are simply based on emotion. Next, we have logos, which is considered by Aristotle as the most important of these three, and I totally agree with Aristotle. This is the Greek word for reason, and it encompasses anything used to appeal to someone's rational side. So any facts that are used, statistics, logic, any evidence that's provided, that's going to be your logos. When you're writing a paper as a college student, you may be thinking, well, how do I use these things? You're going to primarily focus on the logos element. You need to provide your readers with the evidence and your explanation, your logical explanation of why the evidence is saying what you're saying it's saying. You're also going to look at logic and reason in the way that you arrange your essay so that they logically progress in a way that makes sense. While in your essays, it can be good to appeal to your readers' emotions. You don't want to rely too heavily on that. And as far as ethos goes, as a Comp 1 writer, you're really going to build your credibility simply by making sure that your paper is written to the best of your ability, making sure that when you're using sources, you're citing them properly, that you're providing the information in an honest and fair way that is actually portraying the information as it is. So we want to make sure that we're not intentionally or unintentionally lying to our reader. And so that's how you will address these three elements in your writing. However, when we are examining the writing of others or the speeches of others or the commercials of others, we have to consider ethos, pathos, and logos and how the person is using these, the creator is using these to make us feel certain ways, to make us want to do whatever it is they want us to do. And so this can be really important. So we're going to look at this in a commercial. So I'm going to pull that up and we'll look at it together. All right, so I'm going to start the video now. pay close attention because we're going to go over some questions in just a moment.
Are you ready for your big party today? Huh?
All right, now that we've viewed the Google video, we're now going to talk through what it was in this Google Chrome commercial that Google was using to make us want to use their products. So we're first going to look at the idea of audience and pathos. So when we're thinking about the rhetorical triangle, speaker, subject, audience, and then we're thinking about the modes of persuasion, ethos, pathos, logos, they go together in a specific order. So when we think about audience, we're thinking about pathos. It's how what we're presenting makes the audience feel. So here are a few questions to consider. I will go through each one of these. You will be doing a very similar assignment a little later on, so pay close attention to how we're doing this. So the first question says, who do you think is the intended audience for this commercial? How do you know? Okay, so we have a couple of things. We have a clear intended audience of parents. We can see this because we're seeing a parent use this to communicate with their child in the future. They're basically creating, Daniel Lee is creating a digital scrapbook for his daughter. However, we don't want to just limit our audience here because it's not really just for parents. It's also for anybody who has parents or an adult in their life who has had a huge fundamental role for them. And you may be going, well, are you sure? And the answer is yes, because if you consider yourself as a person who has an adult in their life, a parent, or maybe you wish you had a parent in your life who had taken care of you, and they one day gifted you this whole collection of memories from your childhood and what they were thinking about you in that time period, that would be a pretty awesome gift from a parent, particularly if, say, that parent passes on, to be able to go back and hear your dad talking to you or your mom providing you with your first birthday cake would be an invaluable memory that you would like to hold on to. So while, yes, the easy audience here is parents, we have to really consider that this applies to most anybody who can use the internet for things that they could use it for in the future, particularly using Google Chrome. The commercial definitely plays on the audience's emotions. We really have this element of nostalgia and sweetness. So we have that at play here that we have to consider. And then if you didn't find this commercial appealing, I would want you to consider now maybe why you didn't find the commercial appealing. What was it that maybe you found off-putting about this commercial? Does it have something to do with the brand itself? Does it have something to do with the messaging? Do you feel like maybe it doesn't apply to you? If that's you, that's perfectly fine. Just make sure you can justify why it's not working on you. The next element is the actual text, so the commercial and logos and how they go together. So we're going to have our we're going to talk about how the subject and logos, the facts, go together. So here are the questions. What aspects or qualities of this commercial make it unique and effective? Or if you didn't find it effective, what makes it ineffective? Because I find this commercial effective, I'm going to answer this question in that light. However, if you didn't find it effective, you would consider that in your personal light. But for me, this is effective on a variety of levels. Not only as a parent does it appeal to me because I think, oh, wow, I should be doing this for my kid. And as a child with aging parents, I can look at it and say, oh, wow, I wish I had something like this for my parents. So it certainly works on that emotional level, but it also works on a logical level because I'm having the opportunity to see the evidence of how to use the different elements of Google Chrome. So I'm seeing YouTube at work. I'm seeing Google Drive at work. I'm seeing Gmail at work. I'm seeing the photo capabilities of storing my photos all at work. And being able to see those different elements is really making me be able to see just how easy it is to use and how effective it could be for me, even on a personal scale like this for my family, as well as, as my primary email, Google Docs, video type service, right? The next question says, what are some adjectives you would use to describe the commercial? What do those descriptions tell you about the commercial? If I were thinking about adjectives, I would clearly go to there's nostalgia, it's sweet. But I would also talk about how it shows an easiness. It shows some dependability. It shows that I can rely on Google. And so that is helping to build the ethos, which we'll talk about next. The next question says, does the commercial appeal to reason and logic in any ways? So the logical statement that Google's making here is, if you want to have this really cool thing for your family, use our products. But it can also be, if you really want to have all of these tools at your fingertips, use Google. We provide it all to you. So I think the logic there is really, use Google. It's easy. Look, you can see how easy it is, and it's right at your fingertips. And then finally, can the images and sounds in the commercial be interpreted as evidence? In this case, yes, they can. We're seeing how Daniel Lee is using these different services to create this digital scrapbook for his daughter. So we can certainly use what we're seeing as a form of evidence for why we should do what Google wants us to do, which is use their product. Finally, we have to look at the speaker and ethos, and these two things are going to go together. The speaker needs to build his or her credibility. And so what we know here about the speaker of this commercial is that it's Google Chrome using a father, Daniel Lee, to present their message. We know this because we know it's a dad writing to his daughter. We see him sign it, Dad, and that it's Daniel Lee at the end. So we know that's what they're doing. They're using the role of a parent to present this message. We also see Google present themselves in a dependable light. We see, again, how to use all of their services, how easy it is. So they're definitely building their credibility with the audience here by showing us the different things that they're showing us. They gave us evidence, which is logos, and that evidence is making us want to trust them, which is ethos. So seeing that connection is really important. Additionally, the fact that they are Google and we rely so heavily on Google in this culture certainly helps them have some innate credibility with their brand. People generally trust Google. If you have a question, typically you're going to Google it. So keeping that in mind certainly is working toward ethos here as well. So next, what you're going to do in the next assignment is to watch a different commercial that will be assigned to you, and you're going to go through this same set of questions, considering the audience and pathos, the text and logos, and the speaker and ethos. I'll see you on the other side.